So I was thinking about this concept the other day. I mean, actually, this morning I was thinking about it. Wasn't the other day. It was basically I remember the time when I used to work this supermarket job, this 9 to 5 supermarket job, and I guess many people can relate to this. But you kind of you work in the job and you're like, man, I need to get out of here, right? You think those things, and you think like, okay, I'm gonna get out. I need to get out because I need to obviously make a way for myself. You know what I mean? You need to like at least do something with your life to some degree because you know that for the next 20 to 30 years you can't be stuck there, but this is the downfall of thinking like this. So you think like that while you're at work, and then you get home and then it's all out the window, and now that very thing that you were gonna do, so like you told yourself like, yeah, I'm gonna, that business idea I had or whatever, I'm gonna focus on that and do that and execute on that, and then you don't. You know what I mean? Like you just come there and then like you just end up watching YouTube and like eating a few snacks, and then the next day, like you might have an off day the next day. You think like, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, and then you don't. And then your off day is done, your day off is done, and it's the next day's working day, and you're like, you kind of just go back into the motion, and then you're there, and it might not be that next day, but it might be the day after that, like your third or fourth shift in a row, and you're like, okay, nah, I need to do something, you know what I mean? And then you get to that last day before your off day, and you're like, it's kind of relaxed again, and you think like, yeah, I got like 3 days off, or yeah, I got the next week off, or whatever, and then nothing happens, So this is a trap. This is the trap of yourself, but the trap of a 9 to 5 job, basically. It's a trap that most people can fall into. I don't know how many people fall into this, but it's happened to me, and I think like, damn, that sucks, bro, because I wanted to actually make something of myself. You know what I mean? And it's sad because you will do anything you can to self-sabotage. You'll do anything you can to not end up executing and procrastinating. You know what I mean? Which is ultimate procrastination is ultimately self-sabotage, right? That's what it is, in my opinion. But you just end up doing nothing, and you think to yourself every time, and it happens in cycles. And then what happens is that you get angry at yourself for not executing, so you get mad at yourself for not executing, and it's like, damn, like, where did I go wrong? Like, what am I doing wrong? And then you might try something and then you can't stay consistent at it, and then you try something, you might be a little bit consistent, and then you fail at it. And it's like, you just get through this cycle and cycle. So there's so many barriers to pass, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not just one. It's not just like, oh, boom, do this and do that, and you're on your way, It's not like that. So it's a very challenging thing to wrap your mind around, in terms of like, yo, I'm gonna be doing something, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna just sit down and do it, and I'm gonna be consistent at it, and I might fail, but I'm gonna iterate and try again. Like, there's so many hoops to jump through, So you really, when you make that decision, I think the biggest work is, of course, making the decision to like finally do it. But once you get that going, you can iterate from there. Because with me, so I was working in the supermarket, my supermarket 9 to 5 job, and I basically started piecing together things like, what could I possibly do to make my situation better? To just, I don't know, bro, like, it just gets to a point where, you just get sick of like doing the same thing every day, and you're just sick of like being like so inadequate, like putting on your stupid uniform, going to your job, and like being like, fuck, bro, like, I don't want to be here. You know what I mean? Especially when you're working like me at the time, I was working a full time, so it's 5 days out of the week. And you think to yourself, like, shit, there's got to be something else here, you know what I mean? So how I started was that I started looking at things kind of like, what could I do, right? So what could I do? So what could I work on? What kind of skills can I build to kind of, propel myself? Because you don't know where to go. You don't have a network. You don't have the skills. You don't have any experience. So, there's a lot of things working against you. And also, on top of everything of that, you don't believe in yourself. So when you don't believe in yourself fully, it's gonna be hard to commit to these things, right? So I remember just looking up a few things like digital marketing, and like first I made like a blog website, and then I tried doing like that with like Pinterest and like making Pinterest posts. And this was like pre Canva, like when before Canva was really popping, like where you could make graphics and stuff. So I was like making graphics, and then I discovered Canva, of course, pretty early on in 2020. And um I was using that to make some graphics, but it was like, it just took a lot of time to do these things with like think I had this belief like, yo, if I just do a few posts, it's like it's gonna pop off, like my blog's gonna get viewers and everything like that. And that ended up not happening. And then I was doing YouTube, like I'm still doing YouTube now. I've been using YouTube for a long time, but like on and off, you know what I mean? Like very on and off. Like I've been doing it now for the last year and a bit, very consistently, or posting videos consistently, as you can see on my channel. And then like I just thought it's gonna happen, and nothing happened. But I did learn a lot, and that's that iteration I was talking about. So I got through all those hoops, and then I got to the iteration, and then then my life took a different direction. Like I had a completely different job and all of these kinds of things for like a few months, and then I got back to that eventually, like a year and a bit later. I was like, yo, let me try this again. So I made a new blog website, a new brand, but this time I was focusing on Twitter, obviously now X, and I was trying to then build up traffic to my website through there. So I was just like kind of posting blog articles on there. And again, same story, I didn't get much traction, didn't get much views, but I was trying, I was trying to escape that like cycle that I had to work a 9 to 5 every time, because that's what it was ending up as. It was just ending up like, oh, just get another job. Like luckily now I'm at a point where I just work part-time, mainly because my wife also works. So I work part-time, and then I have another kind of part-time job, so it's not completely full-time. Like I get a lot of more free time, but it's still like adds up the hours, you know what I mean? Like I'm still working, I would say about however, like 30 hours a week. 30, yeah, I would say about between 25 and 30 hours a week I'm still working. So not 40 hours, but it's something different. But over 2024, like last year, I wasn't working at all. Like I had no job. I was working my part-time job, which is a family run business. So that was a few hours a week. I would say about 3, 6, 9, 12 hours a week or something like that. Like between 12 and 14 hours a week. And then furthermore, I was just had all this free time when I was just working on my business and my marketing agency and stuff. And so let me wrap this up. I had built the skills, and eventually so I had in 2019, I already started looking at it. I started dedicating myself to that in like 2023, really. But it's always been in the back of my brain since 2020. So I would say a good 4 years later, like 3 to 4 years later, something finally came about. And I had this business, and I was making a little bit of money, nothing crazy. But I was finally doing that thing that I had in mind when I was in my supermarket job, when I was thinking like, damn, how do I get out of this? So that's just an example of what you could do to kind of get to that point. Anyways, understand the hoops that you're gonna have to jump through, and still commit to the process. But remember that when you do fail, it's just a chance for iteration. Look at me, I'm still iterating, I'm still doing it, and I'm still just chipping away. Anyways, peace out and have a good one.